Jennifer Nelson here, host of the Pocket Hours podcast. Here at Pocket Hours, I get to interview fabulous individuals in our industry to help educate us all and to up our game. We get to hear from them their secret sauce, how they are successful to hopefully help inspire us to do better work. The cool part is, as you listen to these interviews, you can also get clock hours on the go. So you listen to a podcast and then you email us at info@scoutrealestate.com to learn more about obtaining those hours. In the meantime, thanks for tuning in, and let's have some fun learning how to be better at what we do. We did something unique today in that we brought a licensed therapist on the show. Her name is Cate Ryan, and asked her to comment on about 8 case studies. We tried to think of situations you might find yourself in, difficulties with an overbearing father who's helping a daughter buying, mindset stuff, clients that aren't pushing themselves or blaming you. We just tried to create some scenarios that you might relate with, and then have her comment on what are some tools you could use to get yourself through those situations and even thrive in the midst of all this around us. She said at one point that we work in a very variable environment. And so being able to regulate ourselves emotionally and seeing people in a stressful situation that isn't about us, even though they might try to make it about us, but it's just chock full of really great things, good questions to ask, etc. So I'm excited to have you benefit from it. Here we go. I have the privilege today. I'm actually looking at on screen my friend Cate Ryan, who is agreed to give us an hour of her time, which is very generous, in helping us as brokers learn how to navigate our crazy lives with these clients and with ourselves and with our own internal thoughts. And so I've come up with a couple different case studies that we're going to be case studies. I like that.
I heard
Fun.
that.
Case studies that we're going to be talking together on this podcast. But first of all, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This feels fun.
Give us a little background. How did you get where you are and what are you doing?
I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and I like to say I've been in the healing professions for a long time because I'm old. So, we'll say over 20 years. I started in the military, in the Air Force as a nurse, and then I did massage therapy professionally for professional sports teams, and then I went back to college and became a therapist. It just felt like it flowed. And now I'm the director of an inpatient substance use program, so rehab, so a little bit of everything.
The reason I asked you to come on today is because we, as you know, probably a little bit just from our relationship, this industry that we're in is a little bit bonkers in the sense that we are called upon to be not only someone who helps someone buy or sell a house, but oftentimes a therapist without any degrees or tools. And so, so here we are trying to navigate people's emotional landscape that sometimes is really messy in the midst of having us have food with our meals, right? As a result of us doing that successfully. Part of what I'm hoping comes out of today is that we can have things that we ask ourselves, questions that you can give us to ask ourselves, which you're really good at. I know you've done that with me many times, but also just some perspective on this as I bring up different case studies. So you ready to go for it?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
awesome. I know that brokers that are listening to this call have likely encountered this overbearing father. So I'm going to paint the picture real quickly to say his daughter, just because it's a daughter, we're gonna make her name Mary just for fun. Mary's buying her house for the first time, and her dad lives on the East Coast, and she's buying in Seattle, and it's her first house. And her dad is on the first buyer broker call, and he wants to make sure that you as the broker know that he has bought and sold 10 to 12 houses already. So he knows pretty much everything there is to know about real estate. How do we help him feel like he's protecting his daughter? Because I think that's ultimately what's happening, and still navigate a process successfully.
I mean, I think the answer to most things is acknowledge and validate and see, you don't want to take it personally. He probably feels out of control. It's a lot of money. He wants to make sure she's doing it right. He thinks he maybe knows best. And so he equates knowledge with protection, right? And so he's like, well, I'm going to share all this because if you all know this, it'll set her up for better success. And he really values his own experience maybe over yours. And so he's not trying to negate you. I think he's trying to say, I'm scared. I feel out of control. I want my authority to be respected. And so I think you acknowledge and then kind of redirect. So something like, it's clear that you've done a lot of research, or like, wow, you know your stuff. That's awesome. Like, it's good to have your input here. And then kind of, I want to make sure that Mary, feels confident too. And so together, we'll always see what your thoughts are. And then I'll tell you my professional expertise so that you're acknowledging, you're not challenging, because he's probably not gonna change.
I love that you said that. I think one of the words I've used in the past is I can't wait to partner with you to help your daughter. In some ways, sort of saying, "Oh my God, thank God you're here." Like, "Oh my gosh, yay. I've got a really caring and loving father who's wanting to advocate for his kid. Thank you for being here." Right?
Yes.
I think for maybe personalities like mine previously, look at me growing. I would be like, "Who the hell are you?" Right? Like, step off. Not helpful. And so as I've gone in this industry now, because I'm old too, 25 years almost, being able to see him for who he is rather than some sort of challenge to.
It's not about your worth or your abilities, it's everybody's out for themselves, and so he's showing up with his own fear and wants to be in control and make sure his daughter's safe, and that it's only about him and his capacity or abilities or lack thereof, and nothing to do with your worth or if you're good at this. He's not really asking you if you're good at it. He's like, "These are all the things I've done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Right.
you should follow my lead." And then you're just like, it's not placating insincerely, but it's like, "Yeah, wow, that's awesome. Nice. We'll remember that. We want Mary to do this." And then move forward where you're quietly in control, but you're not challenging his authority because you probably won't win. You don't want it to be a power struggle.
I like that. Recently, this happened with a client of mine, and her dad was absolutely this guy, right? But he was in town, which is even worse in some ways. But anyway, he came to an inspection, and I remember him sort of second guessing the inspector that I've used for years. And I said something like, before he could speak about another topic, I said something like, "But I'm sure you also saw the water intrusion downstairs, right?" And sort of setting him up to be the guy who caught it, right? And he was like, "Yeah, of course I did." And I was like, "Yeah, I knew you did. So let's talk through, what that means. Like, do you have any thoughts?" And so this sounds like, to Kate's point, like that this is insincere, but it's actually really strategic. And I have to remind brokers often that if you loved someone, even in your most like intimate relationships, it's love that's strategic, right? Like if you learn about what someone likes and how they like to do something and you're planning to do it a way that they can hear it, and that's love. It's not like being manipulative. I guess that's the difference.
We don't have to be afraid to use the word manipulate, right? Like, we want to set everyone up for success, and we do manipulate lots of things. Manipulate can be equated with strategy as well. And so we do manipulate our situation to be successful. So we might be manipulating him and not out of deceit or harm, but for success. Sometimes you do tell people what they want to hear, and not because you want to be insincere, but I always like to say you can be right or you can be effective. And so sometimes the way you get through a situation is you bring like that the dad you brought in and said, "You saw that too, right?" Like, you're not trying to be insincere. You're trying to say, "I know that he'll value this and I want all of us to be successful."
Brokers, as you listening to this podcast, and if you've had the very involved father who wants to be involved, and if there's a way for you to see that differently and see him for what he's really trying to do, which isn't supersede your expertise, but to protect his kid, maybe hopefully this will help you along your way. Okay, case number 2. The broker has a client who, after a huge negotiation, panics. This actually happened to me. Many of these happened to me. These are real stories, and wants to get out of the deal. So I had a 32-year-old male client who, first house, and we got in contract. We worked hard. I mean, I negotiated hard for that guy, and we beat out other offers, and he won. And I'm calling him to say you won. And he's like, "Yay." And I could hear it in his voice where he was like, "Oh, yay." And then like 24 hours later, he's calling me saying, "I can't buy this house. Can you get me out of it?" What's happening here? And what would you say about it?
Sounds like his nervous system is crashing out. Not that I think realtors would ever say that, but it's like buyer's remorse, and not that they don't want it. I think they feel scared of the money, scared of the commitment. I think it's fear. And then also like that adrenaline rush is super exciting. And then when that adrenaline drops, it might even go lower. And so then you're not okay. You guys aren't therapists, but you might say, like, the answer is always acknowledge. You don't and by acknowledging, you're not maybe agreeing or condoning, but if someone's operating from emotion, to challenge them with logic, you're never gonna get anywhere, and so when people start responding with emotion, you just say, "I get it. I understand. No, I can see how you might feel that way." And then you need them to be a little bit more regulated and calm, and then you can go into solution mode or be like, "But you wanted this." So, I would say, be like, "Yeah, I bet that was really intense." And now maybe, like, the letdown of it or the reality of it is probably pretty scary. I try to not make decisions from a reactive place, but more of an active place. So, when emotions are high, I don't always trust that decision. So, with that buyer, you might be like, "This is intense. What are your fears? What are your concerns? What are maybe you regretting?" So that you have more information, more data to make a more informed decision, but know that it's more than likely coming from the letdown of that intensity, and now it feels bad. That went from really good to really bad, or now we have to be responsible. And I think the house buying process is intense and exciting and like a life milestone. And those are all really good things. But we don't talk about, well, now send me all your documents, send me all your money.
Totally.
Now we need to get approval, and to be on the end of someone needing to approve of you, that's really stressful. And so it goes from like so exciting celebration to kind of do the homework, do the work, be busy, feel scared. So I think acknowledging and then trying to soothe. You don't want them to just say no. Your hope is that by acknowledging their experience, they can stay with that decision and not blow it up.
One of the things you said that I loved was that when a client is in high emotion, if you're, which is my tendency, is to go to logic, to try to pull them back to logic. It's not working.
It won't get you anywhere.
It won't get you anywhere. In fact, and then they freak out more. So if you can meet emotion with emotion in the sense of saying, "Oh, I can totally hear you're scared to death. I hear you," or whatever they've said first, and then be able to say, "We're on a fast timeline right now. Let's slow this down for a second." And even to the point of maybe saying, "If this isn't the house for you, I bet we'll know that tomorrow too. Let's try to give this some space to settle because right now the dopamine hits are coming, and and I also like that you said this acknowledging that. I think what I ended up saying to this client was something like, "You're not marrying the house. We're just dating it. We're just dating this house. You can get out. I promise you can get out." But trying to say, what is it that's causing this change of heart? And maybe answer that now, but then maybe answer it again tomorrow. We'll see if we're in the same spot kind of thing.
Yeah. You can change your mind at any time. Let's not make a decision from our feelings. Let's make sure we're making decisions from facts. Tell me how you're feeling. And then it's not an emergency. Like, even if we're on a quick close, we don't need to make a decision today. Just why don't we sit with how we feel? Let's, talk about it. And then, like you said, kind of push that decision out so that you have a little bit more time to regulate so that you are making decisions from a informed, factual place.
As brokers are listening to this, when a client says that, "Oh my gosh, Jennifer, I want out this deal." Immediately, I think whoop, we're charged, right? We're everything, whoop, because all of a sudden our commission's going away. And, we feel like, how do we do this? If he gets out of this, he's going to lose money. And so you telling your client, let's give this some time, is also buying you some time to get your space, right, collected in a way that you aren't just reactive to their reactivity.
Yeah, I think house buying is a lot of money and a lot of emotion.
For sure. It's 100% emotional, even for the most stoic. Okay, case number 3. The client is tempted to sell to the neighbor because they are exhausted with a renter that left the place a disaster. This is currently a situation that I'm in right now where I'm referred to a seller who says, literally with tears in their eyes, "Look at my house," super embarrassed because their house is trashed by this renter. And there's something about that personally, I think, to say, like, this is my house, but look at how it looks. And the neighbors offer me this much money. And when I hear the number that the neighbors offered, I'm like, "Oh, don't do it," right? Because it's so much lower than what the market will bear. And so I feel like you're going to say acknowledge to every one of these. I know you are. I can feel it. But then, like, what else? What else can we do to help this client?
I think you made a good point on the last question of like, there's two experiences happening, right? There's the client who wants to sell, and then there's you as the person in charge who they hired to help them sell. And you both have a stake in the process. And so be really mindful that whatever they say, you can manage your own emotions and your own experience and your own fears a little bit like separately, but not in the moment. even if you're like, but I worked so hard and now you're going to say no, kind of thing. It's not that that's not true or really happening, but so like in this one, they feel shame at maybe the appearance of the house. They're exhausted, they're overwhelmed, and so they just want it to be over with. That's where you can say like, "Oh, I get that you're feeling overwhelmed and you want this to be done." And say, "We can get it done." Settle into your power and your abilities and your knowledge and say like, "That is definitely one option, and let's explore what this might look like." And even if it's a little bit more work to get it, showable. The difference might be, say, a month of time, but 20,000 more or 50,000 more. And there's no wrong answer. If you just want it to be over and money's not worth it, then you can do that. Otherwise, some of that investment would be more money. And so I like to always say, how do you want to lose? Do you wanna lose money and have it be over, or do you wanna lose because it's gonna be a hassle and you're tired, and so you're losing kind of like time and energy, but the payoff is money, and so what feels like the better way to lose? As the broker, like, it means less money for you, but it's still a sale, and so maybe see who you are as the broker. What are your values to say, "Sure, it's not as much money, but if I get them through this because someone died," or whatever that house represents to them, that you just get them through it, that might not be as much money, but it might be you living your value as a broker.
That's true. I like that you said there's no wrong answer. I think brokers get in the habit of trying to convince people. And so they're sort of spinning their wheels trying to say, but this is better, this is better, this is better. When really what the client wants to hear is whatever you choose is fine. How can I help you get to where you want to go? If this is the way, great. If this is the way, great. I'm going to show you the pros and cons of both and let you decide. And to your point about value, sort of that thing of your commission changes if you get to sell it for a little bit more, but if it ends up with you not having a client at the end that's happy, you've sort of shot yourself in the foot, right? Like we're in a referral business. So their ability to say, oh my gosh, Jennifer understood that I was exhausted and said, whatever you want, I'm here to help is such a different feeling than that's ridiculous. You're going to lose money if you sell it to the neighbor, which is your insight thought a little bit like, don't do that. Stop. Don't do that.
And just like we say to the client, how do you wanna lose as the broker? You might say, like, I might lose, say, I don't know, whatever my commission is, $10,000, but I got this client for life, and then they told so many people, and so that loss hurt initially, but then I got so much business because they felt heard or supported or not pushed, and
Long game. Like the long game. Pocket Hours is brought to you by Scout Real Estate. Hi, I'm Jennifer Nelson, owner at Scout Real Estate. I started this firm with the vision of doing things differently, with our focus on legendary service for our clients and creating a community of producing agents to spur each other to do higher quality work. If you are interested in learning more about how a small group of like-minded brokers have come together to have some fun while doing a lot of business, reach out to me, 206-227-7966, or email jennifer@scoutrealestate.com. I promise you this, fun is a high priority for me, but so is winning. So if you appreciate those two things, you might be interested in Scout. Looking forward to hearing from you. Okay, case number 4. Client is mad at the broker because they didn't win a multiple offer situation when the broker gave them a chance to change their offer, but the clients chose not to. So at this particular time, what is this? March 18th in 2025. So if you're listening to this in a couple years, this may not be relevant, but right now in our market, it's a high stakes environment. You're often not the only buyer that's going to go on a house and see if you can get it. And so it's this like heightened state of how much you're going to push yourself financially. And then the broker's job is to say, hey, client, I don't know if that's going to get it done. Would you be willing to think about a higher number if that meant you could win the house? Clients decide, nope. And they often do it like that. Nope, this is the most we're going to pay for this house, right? And you're like, okay, heard ya. And then they regret that decision when they lose, and you're the target.
it's like displaced disappointment or transference, like, they're mad at themselves, they're mad that you don't have more money, they're mad about lots of things, but you're right in front of them, and so it's gonna land on you, and I think some of the answers might be like, don't defend yourself or be like, "Well, we talked about this. Well, I gave you the opportunity," or like, "This is why I said, XYZ," and instead be like, "I know, I can hear how frustrated you are. That was stressful, and it's such a bummer that we lost." And it's not that you're trying to condone their poor behavior. It's they're too angry to be reasonable. Some people just need time to be mad and not to be soothed. And so in that, you're like, no, that totally sucked. You're right. And it is so expensive. And I can't believe it went for 100,000 over asking. Like, that's ridiculous. Because the truth is, even if you push back or you're like, well, I told you, it changes nothing. You've already lost the house. And so it's kind of like parenting. They're not being reasonable, right? Like a little kid that throws a fit on the floor. I was like, I wanted the blue cup. And you're like, you're holding it. Like, what? You're still going to pick that kid up and be like, I know, so hard. And just be nice to them, whether they're rational or not. And so your clients aren't really rational. They're mad for so many reasons, and you're not going to be able to fix that. So you just say, I know, that was so disappointing. And try not to solution it, maybe even that night or whatever. Just say, I know. I don't know the clients, but if they want to talk, you can say, well, what do we want to do next? Do you guys want to consider your budget, right? Some people feel better when they have something to do, and so they want solutioning, and other people just want to be heard and just need time to have their emotions without it being, don't tell me to relax, calm down, those types of things. Just let them be mad and be like, yeah, I know, so hard. And then just be quiet and listen. So
I think that we are, I mean, I'm speaking from obviously just my perspective, but I know a lot of brokers too. And we are people as entrepreneurs that get shit done and move things. And to be in a moment where you're like, it's not my fault that you guys didn't go up in value in your head, but offering instead of a solution and instead of a movement, instead of a, right, like I can solve this or I can help them feel better. I can, instead of just being like, yeah, that really does suck. I'm so sorry. That must be hard. It's hard for me too. I'm disappointed too, is hard to do in the midst of you feeling like you failed them, because that's kind of what they're saying. But to hear it differently and hear it like, "Oh, man, this is disappointing," and not say, "Well, next time, do you wanna go up higher in price?" Like, you're immediately trying to solve it when they're just like, "You didn't get this house for us."
and as the broker, feelings aren't facts. So just because they're blaming you or they're like, God, you should have done better, those are just feelings. That doesn't make it true. And tomorrow they probably won't feel this way. Or with time, I think emotions lessen.
Yeah, that's true. What is it they say? It's like, if you go stand in the ocean and let the waves come up, you're like, "Oh, there's an emotion. Oh, there it goes. There's another emotion. There it goes."
Takes about 30 minutes for a really intense emotion to kind of die down. And so know that they're probably not rational for about 30 minutes. So any solution you do offer, even if it's right, isn't going to work, except for like if you're in negotiations and you're like, it's $5,000, right? Like that one you might push. Yes. And that's a lot of reassurance. So
Yeah, and to your point about that sort of in the moment negotiation, I think some of the questions we've set at our brokerages to say, if you wake up tomorrow morning and you learn that someone else paid 5,000 more in one, will you be disappointed or relieved? And that's your choice. And either there's no wrong answer. I love that. I'm going to use that all the time. There's no wrong answer. Okay, case number 5. Clients seem all in on finding a house. I mean, they are blowing up your phone with, "How about this house? Let's check out this house. Let's do this, da, da, da," and then they go dark. I was talking this morning in our meeting, and I said, "Hey, raise your hand if this has happened to you." Unanimous. Every single one of us has experienced this, like, all in, completely can't be reached person. So, I guess from a broker perspective, how do you not go a little bit bonkers when stuff like that happens?
I would start with expected, right? Change your expectations that you want people to make life-changing decisions with their entire savings, and a move. And so expect that it will happen. And back to like the second one where he changed his mind about buying the house because he was so overwhelmed. Basically, it gets overwhelming. You're asking people to do lots of things. And I think brokers are go-getters and we can do things. And you're used to operating in that stress. And buyers aren't. And so they don't have the skill level maybe to maintain the stressfulness of the process. So one, expect that it could happen and then build your skill set to manage that so that you want to create an opportunity for them to come back. That's no pressure, right? Where you're like, I bet you're overwhelmed. It is hard to make decisions. And so I would say, when you call them, hey, no rush to respond. I'm just checking in on you. I know this is really overwhelming. Whenever you're ready, I'm here. You can take a break at any time. This doesn't have to be all or nothing. And whether you feel that way on the inside is a different answer, but know that they're gonna be overwhelmed, they're not as much of a doer, and so their tolerance for the stress is less. People tell you exactly who they are if you listen, and so they're telling you, "I have a low stress threshold," so even if they come back and work with you, be mindful of your strategy managing them where you might give them less choices, right? Like, just 2, because more than that, and they're gonna dip out because they're already having a hard time making a decision.
I remember a broker said to me one time, "I just haven't heard from these people." And I mean, they were, same scenarios I just described. And then she left a message and said something like, "Are you guys okay?" Eventually, they called her back and they were like, "Yeah, we just went to Spain for 2 weeks. We didn't know that we needed to tell you that," right? And so there's a part of this that we're in our own head making up stories about these people not apparently having any other lives besides looking for houses, which is sort of silly. So, yeah, I love it. Expect it, and then "I'm here when you're ready," you know? "Haven't heard from you guys in a while. I'm sure life's doing its thing, like, we all have busy lives, but I'm here when you're ready." Okay, case number 6. Basically, I wanted to get to the root of brokers that are listening to this podcast. They're saying there's a competition, right? There's this thing of saying, "I'm here doing my work, and then I'm looking over there," which is part of the problem right there. But that person who is nowhere near as good as me, don't have systems, they're not as nice, whatever you wanna say, right? Is doing more business than I'm doing, and it just makes me mad, right? I can legitimately, whatever that means, compare and say, I should be doing better than them because I have more skills or because whatever the case is. And so, how do you help us all in this field navigate that situation?
I think it's normal to compare. We want more. We're looking around to see, what are you doing? What am I not doing? Life's unfair too. So even when you're like, yeah, but I have 20 systems and an assistant and experience and you have nothing, like sometimes it's just luck. And sometimes it's who you know. So there's going to be a lot of unfairness. If you compare to find knowledge or to improve your process, but also remind yourself that like some of that is a therapy term would be like cognitive distortion because you're making up a story of what they're doing. There's like a visibility bias, meaning like you see maybe they're not doing anything. And it reminds me of the ice glacier thing, like the top of the glacier's on the top, and you just see that. But underneath is like, they have friends in the business, they have family, they don't work, someone else pays the bills, they're not in it for the money, all of these things. And so that could really pressure. And so remind yourself that you only see the top of the iceberg and not underneath. So you're seeing like their win maybe, but not their process. And so just because you're doing it different doesn't mean it's worse or that they're better because someone's always going to be better, someone's always going to be worse. And you might be in one of those positions. It will change. And so use that information to have a better process or notice that, are you feeling insecure and that's why you start comparing yourself? Like, does shaming yourself make you work harder? Or it just makes you mad?
Yeah, is it helping you? We say, as owners of brokerages like I am, that busy brokers have fewer complaints when we're doing our work and we're out there focusing on things that can make change for us, that we don't look around as often and find the wrong, that we're really focused on what helps us change. And so, yeah, that's really true. I remember we aspire to a ninja philosophy here at our firm, and it's a company out of Fort Collins, Colorado. They're the most successful real estate company in the nation, even though their price point is low, but they just have figured out some things, right, systems wise. And I remember Larry, who started this ninja movement, asking one of these guys that was crazy successful, like, "What do you do that makes all this success?" And he's like, "I don't know." And he's like, "Oh, okay. Well, what are you doing this weekend?" And he's like, "Oh, having like 20 of my clients over to my house to watch football." And Larry was like, "Oh, cool. How often do you do that?" "Oh, the whole football season." And he's like, "Oh, so do you get through your whole database and have them all to your home and host them for a party?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, that's what you do." Right? So, like, to your point of, like, we don't know that just because someone doesn't do the systems that we think are correct, if they're not doing something over here that they aren't even recognizing is contributing to their wild success, right?
And I would also say, like, be mindful of your process to say, do you only give to get? So do you only call the clients you know will say yes to you instead of calling all the clients, right? Like, I have a friend who's a real estate agent and I don't watch football, I'm not that sporty. She mails me, and I already bought a house, but every year she mails me the baseball season and the football season on a magnet that goes on my fridge with her logo. she's not gonna get a lot of money from me for a while, and I'm not sporty, but I love it. Like, I look forward to it. It makes me feel like, "Oh, wait, I actually know the schedule." And so, I don't know, it's something that I mean, she's been doing it for probably 15 years, and I did use her when I bought my house, but also it just I love it, and so being mindful that you're building, like, your reputation, you're building your stance in the community, you're living your values, and so you might not have an instant return on investment, but there's a long game.
Yeah, absolutely. Back to the long game. Yeah. Okay, 2 more. Case study number 7. Clients are getting in their own way by not pushing themselves when they can clearly financially afford it. It's a little bit like the other one, but here's what they're saying. "Oh my gosh, we love this house. This is our house. We've found it," right? And then they're competing. And so you're saying, "Okay, well, here's some ways you can demonstrate to the seller that you want this house." And they're doing the holdback. They're doing the, "Well, I don't know. We love it, but I just don't think it's worth that." Or this is my favorite line. "We love it. This is our dream house, but we don't want to get into a bidding war." And so there's this missing piece for me sometimes about, "We're over here. We love it. And then here's how you get it." And they're like, "Nope, we're going to go here instead." How do we as a broker help them ask the right questions to maybe have them change their strategy or maybe not and accept that they're going to be in the middle ground and that that's what love looks like to them? We love it. And here's our stuff.
I think what's in there is, like, fear and, like, what does maybe money mean to them, because if they spend $1,000,000 on a house versus 800,000, right? Like, that million the word million to them makes them feel like that's opulent or that's irresponsible, or it's like, where's the fear coming from? And, like, you want the house, you have the money, you could spend it, and you're still saying no, and so then it's probably bumping up against one of their values is what I think. I think some of it is saying like, well, what does that big number mean to you? Who would you be if you spent this money or didn't? I think you said earlier, like, how would you feel in 6 months if you don't have this? Would you regret it? And houses just keep going up as well. That often you're like, I'm not paying that. And then in a year, you still love that house and it's gone up 500,000, And so I think some of it is about who would they be if they spent the extra money?
I feel like sometimes buyers have their, let's put in a significant person, right? Whether it's their dad or their mom or their aunt or whoever in their ear, sort of saying, well, something to the effect of, "You better be careful not to fill in the blank." And one of those has to do with spend too much on a house, right? At some point, they have heard this message. And so, to your point, they're bumping against this, "I don't want to be the fool that overpays." I think one time, what did we say? Someone said, "I don't wanna get a bidding war," and I think I remember saying, "God, who does?"
Perfect.
Right? And, me neither. That's gross. No, thank you. We don't wanna do eBay real estate. No, thanks. I'm out, right? But how can we structure it in a way that helps you get it if you are willing to pay this amount of money and not get it for someone that's willing to pay more? And so taking out the sting of someone who has to say, because the voice in their head, we don't wanna get in a bidding war, or we don't wanna pay too much. And I guess reframing it to, like, "If this is a house you love, I want you to get it. Let's figure out how much you're willing to pay to do that." This is the psychology part that I feel like sometimes I want you just to come along with me to these appointments and be like, "Hang on just a second, I have to talk to Kate."
I'm like, she didn't mean that. Don't say anything. She's working it out in her head.
I could have a little earpiece in my head. It'd be like, "Kate, did you hear that? What do you say?"
I would love that. That would be fun.
Yeah, right? This is what she really means, yeah.
And I think the money piece also, like, one, like you said, I think being approved of or getting someone else's approval, that's so hard to be on the receiving end of, especially if you're super successful in your life and you call the shots, you're not used to waiting for someone else to approve of you or say yes to you. So the bidding war is like that piece might feel scary. And so you're like, great, if you don't want a bidding war, we have to go high. It means you have to pay for what you want. Money will get you the answer. And you say also it's money to say you will be able to, I mean, I think you guys probably know all this stuff, but like you're buying a lifestyle, you're buying an identity, you're buying a neighborhood and legacy for your family, and that might cost more money. Would you regret it if you get to have all of these things, or vice versa? If you don't spend the money and then you whatever pictures in your head you don't get because you have to compromise on the house.
And back to your point about you get to be right or effective.
Absolutely. You can say, sure, we shouldn't have to have a bidding war or pay this much money. So you can be right and then we don't get the house, or you can be effective and say, yeah, it's going to cost you 100,000 more and you can have everything you ever wanted.
Yep. And there it is again. Make your choice. There's your choice. I love it. Okay, last one. We're doing so good. What I wrote down is creating a mindset that serves you in an environment that is hard to stay positive, especially when you aren't doing the amount of transactions you want to do. So, realtors by and large had this sort of, up and down, right? Like, oh, they're up high because they had 5 transactions close. And then, wow, we're a little bit down here for a while. And what I try to teach at Scout, and I know other brokerages do too, is to try to say, how can we get to the point where this is relatively not as like this? But even as it starts to get somewhat consistent, there's still this doubt that comes into your head to say, am I going to sell another house? Am I going to, are people going to use me? Or are we going to win with this buyer? We've lost 3 times already. And so it's that constant, like, how do I change my mindset to work for me instead of when your thoughts are really eroding your self confidence?
I mean, I think you guys work in such a variable environment that it's like intermittent reinforcement, right? And so, like, when it's really good, it's the highs there. It's like gambling, right? It's addictive because you're like, yeah, but one more and I could win. Or like you have that big one. And because it's so variable, you have like 5 amazing wins and then you have nothing. And so, being mindful not to put your success and your worth together, that more houses doesn't mean you're more successful and then more valuable as a human and as a worker, as your identity, because it is such a variable job. And so it requires not equating success with your identity and also being mindful that because it's all or nothing at times, you have to be responsible in your personal life financially to make sure that you don't overspend when you're getting all the money and then you don't have enough to maintain that lifestyle. So it's not just business, but it's about personal responsibility to yourself of being, savings. And not that we're here to be financial advisors, but I guess this job is feast or famine. And so you have to set yourself up to be okay so that when you're not getting money, you don't think, oh, I'm a failure. I can't live my life. And then it creates kind of a snowball that reinforces that negative perspective.
Absolutely. Brokers that show up sort of desperate for the deal, everybody feels that. Right? And you're like, I don't know what it is, but she seemed weird or he seemed weird. Yeah.
And then that's where you pressure the clients differently. Because if you're doing okay emotionally, you want to stay in your power and they look to you. It's kind of like parenting or teaching. You're the boss. What's your leadership style? And so if you're like, well, just do what I say because I want the money, that doesn't breed trust or a relationship. And so if you're okay, whether you get the deal or not, you're going to be so much more effective because you're not operating from this intense emotion.
I remember one time we were sitting in a meeting and I was asking the brokers what they'd done that week for work. And somebody said open houses. And I, called these 3 clients and I did this. And then I said something like, doesn't it feel good to work? And everyone's like, "Yeah, it does. It feels good to work." And so if we can emphasize more that our work, not our closings, are good, right? I like this. I like working and I like doing the things that we get to do. And in fact, a lot of what we do, I think, is the part where we don't get paid is more rewarding, right? Like a lot of real estating, if you will, the stuff that doesn't give you a paycheck, but it's this stuff that makes you feel better about what you do. Taking care of your clients, doing the extra thing, that ends up obviously, you get a paycheck later, but
It's all the little things, and also that's where you figure out who you are as a broker to say, "What are my processes when I'm not busy?" There's so much that goes into it, and so when you're doing all the contracts, you don't have time to do mailings or do open houses or do those things, and so use that downtime for those little things, and I love the saying, it's like, you can have a busy day with 20 things, or you can have the day off, but you get done with the 20 things, you're like, "Oh my god, I did it," and you get in bed, you're like, "God, I'm so good." You're like, feel, proud of, like, what you accomplished versus sure, it's nice to have the day off, but you get in bed, you don't feel that accomplishment or sense of success. It's different. And so remind yourself that success looks like lots of things, not just money.
that's right.
Easier said than done. I mean, everybody likes money.
No kidding. And also just the mindset, right? Like it's hard to remind yourself of why you're doing what you're doing and stay positive when you're like, I haven't had a paycheck for 3 months. And this is a hard job for that, right? It happens.
I think that goes back to like enjoy your time when you're slow to that you're really spending your life well. You're spending your time well and that you've saved your money so that you're not only spending money and then when you have time you don't know what to do with yourself and then you have time and then you equate less worth because you're not doing something. And so it's a whole equation.
Yeah, it is. I remember a broker said to me recently in the last couple of years, something like, I've done the whole Ninja Nine thing that I'm supposed to do, which is part of that philosophy that we do. And I've finished it and I don't have any active buyers right now. And I've done this and I've done this. And I said, okay. And she was like, what do I do today? And I go, snowboard. And she was like, oh my gosh, I think I wanna go snowboarding, and I was like, "Yeah, you should go snowboarding," right? Like, it's that break from, if I just do more, then more will come, and you're like, or if you just do what we know works, and then eventually something will come. We don't have to be, like, punishing ourselves, and in this mire of self-doubt, we can go do things we enjoy, which, by the way, usually attracts more clients.
Absolutely. You're balanced, you're investing in yourself. We're like a whole ecosystem, and if you only focus on one part, then the rest is being neglected because fun and relaxation is why we do this. Like, real estate is super intense sometimes, and other times you're like, "Yeah, I'm playing golf," or "I'm getting coffee with a friend," or "I didn't have to get up early today," and so value that downtime equally. And then also build your life outside of real estate so that you have more than one identity and more than one value.
Totally, yes. I am more than a real estate agent. Yes, absolutely. This was super fun. Thanks for giving up your time, and I took a bunch of notes, and, yeah, I just really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here and anytime and good luck. That's a lot of feelings.
Thank you so much for listening into Pocket Hours. I hope this has been interesting, fun, made you laugh, made you think, spurred you on to do and implement some new things in your business. I appreciate your time and hope this has been a good use of it, period. Now, go be the agent you would hire.
Audiotocracy.